one of our good friends, colleagues, Bryan Munson, who has covered Nebraska recruiting for well over 20 years, joining us from the home base in Dallas, Texas. But we're going to be joined by Bryan this week out in Nashville. Bryan, thank you for taking some time to join us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I wanted to jump in on it because it is the feeling of recruiting, and we've talked about this a lot, is so different, and it continues to change with NIL, with the early signing day, with the roster stuff, where, you know, as a fan that follows recruiting, you've had to really change your habits and just your approach of how you look at things. What are your thoughts on just the state of that right now?
Yeah, I don't think we really have it all figured out quite yet. I think that you and I would probably agree that some of these programs don't have it figured out yet either. I mean, the ones that are out there chasing some of these recruits around that maybe are not those kind of guys you want to fill your class up with first. Like, let's be honest. I mean, there definitely seems to be a couple programs around the country right now that look like they're playing checkers when everybody else is kind of playing chess. And it has been confusing, guys. And like I said, I don't think we truly understand all the impacts of several things. I think this whole JUCO thing threw everybody kind of for a loop, and you had these high school kids now that have kind of decided to step back and try that JUCO route. And then they're going to figure out, oh, hey, I'm not going to get that year of eligibility back. Now I'm back trying to find my way back into NCAA football. I think that that's another huge trap for some of these guys. And I think right now you're, you know, without having that spring game to potentially that we always kind of plan on, and having, you know, at least the official visitors that Nebraska had last year, which were some pretty critical guys, Dawson Merritt, you know, Cortez Mills, TJ Lateef. I mean, those are some real key folks in the 2025 class. If you don't have that opportunity that weekend and you lose another weekend before, you know, going into official visits, and you don't give a chance for Ryan Mosley and Jabari Brady or somebody else to come in and see a game at Nebraska prior to having to take an official visit, it's going to be in the back of their minds. They don't know what a game day weekend is like in Lincoln. So there's a lot of stuff really going on right now that's going to impact the Huskers.
You wrote about it, Bryan, in your column last week. Nebraska, the impact of Nebraska's spring game going away on recruiting. It was really striking what you wrote.
Yeah.
What is your, verbalize it.
It's Nebraska home games to me has been, for all the time that I attended games prior to moving to Texas, prior to covering recruiting, that has always been the one thing that Nebraska cannot paint a picture verbally. They can't put you into an experience room, you know, in the spring or the summer and make you feel like you're there. You have to literally walk out the tunnel and down the red carpet and out the doors and see all the fans and how things open up, and really hear Sirius coming over the you know, the PA system, and be out on the field and talking to Matt Rule and all these things. I mean, there's just no way to duplicate that. And that is Nebraska's biggest recruiting advantage. Now, I think that there's obviously others, and I think we saw some this last week, like with the junior day. You know, having the facilities done was a huge selling point for Nebraska. I mean, those guys were blown away by the selling point, by the facilities and what's going on. But that right there, being down on the field, talking to the guys, hearing the coaches coach the players, just hearing that kind of, hey, you know what? It's been 2 months of grueling work this spring, and now we're going to go out here and have this scrimmage in front of all these fans that we love and have fun. And I think that game right there to me is completely different than any other game, and it's just an experience. It's a total experience, and Nebraska possibly now will not have that as a recruiting tool when it comes to the 2026 class. And I think that's going to be very difficult to find a substitute for.
So, Bryan, high school recruiting is obviously in flux, but transfer portal recruiting is now the name of the game, and Nebraska just got a big one. Rocco Spindler. I know you got a chance to talk with him and reading your interviews, and then Sip stuff talking with his dad and Tunnel Talk. He seems like a pretty fascinating guy. Like, How would you describe him? I mean, we kind of know about him as a player, but just from a personality standpoint, and what kind of fit do you expect that with the group that Donnie Raiola has?
Yeah, Steve and I kind of compared notes, I think, on that Sunday or that Monday, and I said he is just I'm looking forward to you guys covering him because he's just this quotable machine. I mean, when you don't turn the tape off, don't turn the tape off ever around that dude, because you don't know what's going to come out, and whatever's going to come out of his mouth typically is going to be pretty amazing. I asked 3 questions in a 5-minute conversation, and he just took it for a run, and it was fascinating. I mean, he's been through a lot. And this is a guy that I think, number one, has tremendous confidence in his abilities. I think he sees the bigger picture, that, he's a leader and that he wants to help, the not just go out there to become the best player he can possibly to help the team. He wants to help all the guys out there to his left and his right and across the ball from him. And I think that that's the number one thing that Nebraska gets here, besides seeing his tremendous PFF and, not allowing a sack and all the passing attempts this season for Notre Dame and just being a fascinating player anyway. I think Nebraska has a guy that they can put into the locker room, in the team room, that they didn't have before. They didn't have a guy that has this type of success, that has, 4 years under his belt, that he can go there and say, I've been there, guys. I've been on the run. I know what happens when you lose to an NIU during the season. You don't have to hang your heads. You don't have to spiral down into a deep, dark place. You can throw that stuff aside, get focused again, believe in yourselves, and guess what? You can run it all the way out to the national championship in the CFP. I think that kind of person in the room is going to be invaluable for Nebraska. And I know some people – kind of made light of, like, me saying about, like what Spindler said about those guys, wanting to go play for a national championship, and said, like, well, Nebraska's not going to play for that. Look, if you're not thinking that you're going to make a run at a national championship, don't play. Don't play. But this guy honestly feels like he can go to Nebraska and that they're a step or two away. And he could be a huge part of what helps that team and Matt Rule take another step forward and go from Pinstripe Bowl to hopefully CFP, right? That's really what you're hoping. And once you get through the door, he's a guy that also understands you don't have to be chalk to win the national championship. You don't have to be chalk to get to the national championship. Lots of things happen there, and you just got to be playing your best later on in the season, and then you can do some great things all the way down the line.
As we wrap it up with Bryan Munson, Bryan, I just wanted to ask you this. What do you think is, as you look at 2026 recruiting, based on the offers that have gone out, what do you think is the biggest area or two of need that they've been pursuing? And I know it's fluid. I always use that word in recruiting. It can change one day over the other. But what's your feel right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to overlook the offensive line aspect of the importance in this class. I mean, Nebraska brought in 3 guys last weekend, 2 guys that are true tackles, and Rex Waterman, who's playing tackle currently down there at Hamilton High School in Arizona, is really going to be more of a center or a guard. Greg Patrick, the nephew of former Husker Chris Patrick, was supposed to be there, and he's going to come back in the spring. So there's 4 names I think Nebraska fans need to kind of remember when it comes to offensive line. And then I think after that, I think it's really interesting what Nebraska has done, like with their board very recently. And I think that they've really gone out and addressed the secondary. There's one guy whose film was absolutely fascinating to me to watch. And I was totally blown away for not having watched his film before the weekend and watching it as I was typing up his interview. Dominic Turnbull, that dude's a player. That dude is like a 6'2", 6'3" long, boundary cornerback that can just run step for step with people. He's a gazelle. And I think the secondary, Sean, really, I think they have to frame up that back half, and get those guys right, those 5-6 positions, depending on whatever set you're in. And then I think obviously offensive line, in particular offensive tackle, they really need to land a blue chip, big time offensive tackle out of the high school ranks this year, in my opinion.
Well, Bryan, we're looking forward to seeing you in Nashville.
Yeah,
and
we are.
we need you to be maybe a security detail for Steve Sipple out there for us. So
Yeah, I've got the stay back like this. I can just
because when Sipple hit Broadway Street, I mean,
all bets are off.
All bets are really off.
Paparazzi. I mean, they're going to think, who's that? Is that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift? No, it's Steve Sipple.
Yep.
Yeah, just bring those dark sunglasses, man. Just bring those dark. Tip the hat down real low. They'll
Like a black cowboy hat too that he can wear.
Give him some hot chicken.
That's it.
Well, Bryan,
Good
thanks
job,
again.
Bryan. Good job.